Contention 1 is the stateless 65 years ago, the U.S. colonized Okinawa despite returning to Japanese sovereignty in 1972. Political presence remains constant and thin. Lives Okinawans were banned out in 618. U.S. occupied Japan colonies settled Okinawa, influencing how Okinawa occupied American military to have U.S. personnel, of course, U.S. based in Japan, located in any territory, and the U.S. Defense allows used to describe the entire island of Okinawa. They become viable political bodies of the U.S. and Japan from Fukumura in 287. Cartridge features later released during military operations. Okinawa people soft happening only to low-flying military aircraft. The students have classes disrupted due to regulatory training access. So it's have forest fires, soil erosion, earth tremors, accidents under the sofa. The U.S. is not responsible for environmental cleanup. We will isolate 2 internal links to our advantage. First, instead of voting up for these injustices, status quo foreign policies, actively waging war on the Okinawans, treating them as objects to be manipulated on a geopolitical chessboard for mantle. In 2 basic politically martial Okinawa was sacrificed as a military colony, continued to sacrifice for the good of security and deprioritization of the U.S. Japan security electrical policy. These bets to the natural environment reflection traditional real estate of security represents only one possible reading of security. Second, U.S. presence makes life unlivable for the Okinawans. Daily interrupts of the Okinawans routines, environmental degradation, and abuse of Okinawan protesters devalue lives of the Okinawans are viewed as totally disposable for mantle. Again, in 286, 38 military facilities cover the Okinawa island base with the rest of Japan, all invaded for administration, vacation, transport, logistics, support, repairs, recreation. The bases in Okinawa for Marines. U.S. soldiers mistakenly used depleted uranium bullets. Washington did not notify Tokyo. This vastly unfair situation would not be tolerated on the mainland. Okinawa has little voice economically. Okinawa has become a victim to the base construction economy that is difficult to give up. Of the 452 members of the Japanese Diet, only 5 represent Okinawa. Any Okinawan formal protests are ignored or overruled. To question the need for American bases in Okinawa would be to question the entire framework for U.S.-Japan defense policy. The Japanese state has repeatedly manipulated the system to maintain the status quo. For free speech in the land have been bulldozed and concrete. Environmental degradation are ruining the coastline, eating away at coral and posing a danger to marine life. There are pockets of resistance that show that alternatives do exist. The promotion of a distinct Okinawan identity, reinterpretation of what affluence means based on a lifestyle rooted in the local environment is key to Okinawan redefinitions of security. The struggles over the future of Okinawa. And the sovereign's understanding of populations as objects to be manipulated to a desired political end leads to extinction. Eventually, all populations will be sacrificed from Dean. To get one, sovereign power is a power that distinguishes political life and mere existence. It is no longer so much the right to put to death, but to disqualify life. It disallows those deemed unworthy of life. Biopolitics strives more to be more sophisticated. Killing machine war becomes genocidal, visiting plagues, or polluting the biosphere in which it lives to the point at which bare life is no longer sustainable by an ethnic cleansing business holocaust upon whole groups conducting named utopia. To be achieved, power to excise level of popularity sense wars we wage to that level of genocide is indeed the dream of modern power. Is because power is exercised at the level of life itself. Massacres have become vital. The relation between the administration of life and right to kill entire populations has become a necessary relation. The elimination of all other races is only one phase of the purification of one's own race. This sort of violence actively spills over and risks the entire world from heart and degree into big war. Global wars increased becoming distinct from global police action war became absolute. The technological development of weapons made part of the made possible for the first time massive. Even global destruction of the capacity for genocide and nuclear destruction touches directly on the very structure of life, corrupting it. A biopower, a power that rules directly over death of humanity itself, perhaps indeed all of being. War becomes ontological. And the effect of the acts comparatively worse than worse imaginable in the status quo. Not only does it make violence constant, but it makes wars escalate quicker and end in more violent ways. From Bembe in 2K3, war machine to the Constitution of Communist Coalition, geography, resource extraction, emergence of oppressive form of government, how many populations are stagnated into rebels, or civilians incapacitated by mutilation, or simply massacred, while the survivors are confined in zones of exception. Techniques of discipline are being replaced by alternatives. That is more tragic because more extreme technologies of destruction have become more tactile. The choices between life and death within the maximal economy now represented by the massacre they provoked, territorial partition, seeding, controlling repeating data against their own model of fiefdoms. Thus, we advocate that the United States federal government should withdraw its military presence from Okinawa. Contention 2 is we solve our case. Okinawans are being discriminated against for the continuation of the alliance from BBC. In 10-3, Okinawans spent Sicily, coordinated Japanese security against Okinawans being discriminated. Okinawans retreated second class citizens starting to prepare something armed relocation. Protests currently stalled. Okinawans watch and wait. And protests against U.S. military presence is a crucial spillover point for contesting other unequal power relations from Tanji. In 2K3, the opposition and presence of U.S. military bases, the most prominent protests in post-war Okinawans meant the Okinawans part of connect marginalization of conform to the transfer force of Okinawa, not like you mean the Okinawans and the Okinawans related to marginalization. And halting militarism in Okinawa is crucial. One is the erases the specter of this violence to public view so that we can reform social movements in opposition to it. From MacLeish in 5-6, halting new facility construction in Okinawa, bringing public attention to bear on the harms that are shrouded in secrecy, focusing on the basing's logic, and resistance makes valuable resources for anti-militarist activists and social movements. Basing creates novel conceptions of novel conditions of sovereign exception, but also creating subjugated territory, but it also opens up new possibility for resistance and critique. Also, we must engage the lens where the Okinawans are constituted as a problem people, otherwise we are doomed to repeat status quo oppression. From Dillon and Reed In 2K, management population may further practice to problem management population management may reduce policy makers develop problems facing politically and technological and test borders with problems that crime and resolution policies activities resolution policymakers re-promptation for problems constrained by institutionalized logical investments trying to accept problems. There's nothing so that epistemological self-process analysis is what policymakers seek to avoid because they are constantly compelled to respond to problems or they ordinarily have more or less control than they proclaim zero possibility of epistemological substance fashion ways to which global governments capture populations like nominated economy power knowledge and liberally and radically and inactive distributions of wealth, opportunity, and moral danger. And opening up academic space for the voices of the oppressed to be heard produces a better critical method. It spills over and better allows us to evaluate other instances of power from Owen. In 1977, the termination of the mediator is extended by dominant system of strength brought by specific groups and individuals constitute women as hysterical, blacks as criminal, homosexuals perverted, all operate through human forms of power knowledge relations. Yet, the specificity of the social practices and discourse engaged in producing these identities entails that while these struggles share a general and formal interests in the biopolitics, humanism, their subjects of interest are distinct. The implication for this state's intellectual practice began apparent because distinction between universal and specific intellectual, universal intellectual commitment to critique as a legislative fact that the historian thought these could locate intellectual activity as ongoing tendencies to the present the intellectual not to talk grand theories, but specific analyses, not global, but local criticism, radical criticism is absolutely indispensable for any transmission of rates and the same mode of thought transmission that is only a way of adjusting the same mode of thought more closely to the reality. Thanks to only being superficial transformation. The role of the intellectuals does not to speak on behalf of others, but to create the space within which their struggles become visible such that these others can speak for themselves. Contention 3 is the IRL. First, national security threats should be taken with a grain of salt. Most of them concocted by militarists for money from Hossein Zada. In 2 cases, hallmark of militarism need to affect external national security in order to justify continued expansion of military presence in post-war war period that has required military industrial to be more creative and concocting new sources of danger to U.S. interests. This need for international conflict makes U.S. military peers more dangerous than past. What makes it more dangerous the industrial part wars become big business instigation of international conflicts and external threats. National security is a lucrative proposition will increase both profits by commanding markets and share the share of sack by increasing the Pentagon's budget and predictions regarding East Asian and security result of shoddy scholarship from Kang in degree 3 self-submission, reason profitability, conflict versus possibility, Japanese remember Chinese adventures, more conflict over time, water melts, more 3 more than else, so past yet none of these pessimistic predictions have come past Asian countries doctrine for this one support why scholars consider said HSA fruitful and necessary theoretical exercise. Scholars' response, just wait. In the absence of a specific time frame, this response is unfalsifiable. Without a time frame, the response is mere tropical play designed to avoid evidence, and we must address this having arms stemming to start from a position of preventing large-scale violence, blindness to make foreign violence inevitable from Cuomo in 96 parts not then away from the military practice of mere after play to price politics, they distract from the need to sustain resistance to unmatched omnipresent system of domination and oppression, moving away from president politics concerning war enables a more nuanced and theoretically practical forms of resistance to shift at a less effective militarism on women, subjugating peoples and environments, and the sweat cycling steps open on peace movement is going through on making politicization of the issue inevitable for BBC. In 1030, legislative capacity on the sense of could be without going out, gave people open ground for fractional stems units with that letter command with based off beyond local knowledge of various anchors, not going away local media remains Milton, and the GDPR realign posture towards Guam bound units and against the plan for Bushinowitz. In 6.5 GDPR steps to be complete by years and May 1 trade clear defense posture nation should take place on the move of the 8,000 Marines to Guam, Japanese out of Okinawa, and the manned military presence will eventually be relocated non-UX planned from Ogawa. In 822 details relocating Marine North Walton, pulling left understanding to the local interest of Nogo and Nago, incorporating the plan into the report being postponed decision on the placement base.
Will you defend the enactment of a plan by the United States federal government?
Can you give me a second to talk when I answer this? The answer is yes, but we also think that the way that intellectuals talk about things is more important. Like the way that our plan functions is as a critique of status quo U.S. policy towards like Okinawa. So like if you say that current status quo policy towards Okinawa is good, then obviously we have to defend that link argument. If you say the politics DA, not so much.
Okay, so if we pin you to reasons why President Okinawa is good, does that outweigh your intellectual criticism arguments?
I mean, you would have to make impact calculus arguments.
Well, right, but in a world where we do win that.
Like, if you win that the DA outlinks and outweighs the case, you probably win.
Okay. Your Dean evidence seems to indicate that really any type of control, biopolitical control, is enough to trigger the impact. I guess, how do you solve global biopolitics in a world where the United States seems pretty committed to continue to justify?
Okay, I want to say 3 things to answer this question. First thing is that Dean is not talking about all biopower. Foucault makes a very clear distinction between biopower being good or bad. Rather, it is just a tool. It is something that can be used to do incredibly violent things. Our Dean evidence is talking about when biopower is deployed in violent ways. Okay, so we don't get rid of all biopower.
I know. My question is.
But here are the 2 things that we do to make it so that we can distinguish and fight against bad forms of biopolitics globally. First, our MacLeish evidence.
We'll get to solvency in a second.
So you just asked how I solved that. How I solved it. How we solved it.
Well, the argument, I guess, is is there still violent biopolitical engagement after the plan?
Where?
Well, I guess just globally, because your Dean evidence seems to indicate.
Globally, I mean, after the plan?
Sure.
I don't know, but like after our we should hope that our intellectual method provides a forum to address those concerns. Specific intellectualism, which is what we do when we criticize local instances of biopolitics, like the instance of biopolitics in Okinawa.
Your Dillon and Reed evidence seems to indicate that the Okinawa, or what is a problem person in the context of the affirmative, as per the Dillon and Reed evidence?
The Dillon and Reed evidence says that, like, the way that
I mean, I know what the Dillon and Reed evidence says.
Yeah, I know.
How are Okinawans construed as a problem people? It seems like they're just seen as disposable. I don't see why that's the same thing.
Problem people means disposable. It's the same thing.
Okay. Your Hussein evidence on, I guess, the last contention, what type of threat does he isolate that militarism, I guess, makes up for political and monetary gains?
Like all of them.
All of them?
Not all threats. We're not saying that predictions or like the act of saying that there is a threat is bad, but it's more an indict of, or a
truth claim.
No, not at all. It's sort of a preempt to you reading like impact scenarios written by authors who are wrought within the military-industrial complex, and that is where they get their.
Your evidence also seems to indicate that Okinawans are seemingly successful in making their demands heard.
Which piece of evidence are you talking about?
I think it's the second to last piece of evidence. Why?
The BBC evidence just says that the Okinawans are being ignored in the status quo by the Japanese government, but that they will continue to try and like make it so that they do this, which makes it so that like there's going to still be some political controversies about it.
Okay.